Welcome to Gulfstream Park. It is December 14th, 2014. Christina Bosnakis, Ron Nicoletti. A lovely day, beautiful, warm. We've been really spoiled, Ron, with the weather here in southern Florida, and great racing yesterday.
Great racing yesterday, just a spectacular day, and same kind of weather today. We got that fast main track, firm turf course, and you know what? We got those big, huge carryovers of guarantees again today. You see the Rainbow Six, $100,000 jackpot guarantee, races 5 through 10. Then in the Pick 5, a $50,000 guarantee. That's the Pick 5, the last 5 races of the afternoon. And we follow with the late Pick 4, $100,000 guarantee. You're talking about yesterday, boy, they bet. It was absolutely a great day here. You know, some of those races were like the graded stakes races. We had one graded stake, but they all looked like graded stakes to me.
They sure did, and there's some of those horses that are going to be those rising stars to look to in the future. And we'll start with one of the races we saw on yesterday's card, and that was the El Prado, and a horse from the Todd Pletcher barn, Mishawish, and a little bit unlucky in his last 2 starts, disqualified a couple starts back in Saratoga, came back last time, 9 furlongs, probably a little bit too far for him. Ron, wow,
he just exploded to victory through the stretch, and you know, you were looking back, didn't have the best of trips early on once again, but he just proved his class. Come by the horse on the inside, ran very well, but nobody was beating that horse yesterday afternoon in Todd Pletcher. That was first of 3 victories in a row, and it was a really nice performance. And I know you love this horse. You were mad about him all day long, but you love that horse.
You know, I was trying to take a shot actually with that race, and I thought that he was going to be the horse to beat, but he really was impressive. In fact, Todd Pletcher had a couple of winners before that. Enchantress, another nice horse in the first race, also Escondido. That was his 3rd win on the card. And then came the Harlan's Holiday, and won by Liam's Map, and this is also another horse from the Todd Pletcher barn, a son of Unbridled Song, and Todd knows how to handle these unbridled songs. He's had Graydar, Cross Traffic. Ron, this looks like another one.
Yeah, this was some fantastic race. Everybody was hooping and hollering, and what the most impressive thing about this victory here, early on the pace setter was Shaba, so Shaba ends up finishing last.
Yeah.
So this horse put away Shaba. Then here comes Valid, come flying up on the outside, and everybody that's watching the race says, you know, this horse is just going to fly by this horse. He digs in again. They ding-dong it down the wire to the stretch. Valid, before the race, you and I were talking about it here in the walking ring, looked absolutely spectacular. But what a performance, and what an exciting afternoon. We happened to watch it outside on the rail, Christina and I, and people were cheering the whole way through the stretch. And you always sort of thought that the 7, Valid, was going to go by the horse, but did not. So it was a great race.
That just shows you the class of Liam's Map, and we'll be seeing him here later during the meet, and such an exciting horse from the Todd Pletcher barn. But we also had the finale, the day's finale, which was the South Beach, and a filly that I'm really high on. She won her debut up in New York, came here, her first stakes here in the United States, and that's Margaret Rose from the Christophe Clement barn. What a classy filly.
Yeah, she a classy filly. She had, you know, she looked like she had some trouble early on too, but, you know, shook it off, and just very game in the stretch here coming through. And there was a couple of horses you thought might get by. The one horse was flying at the end, but the 6 was classy enough to hold them off, and that's a horse that you mark down to watch in the future.
I really like her, and I liked her going into the race. I like her even more coming out of that race, and that's going to be one we're going to want to watch. But Ron, we do have a 10-race card on tap here today. We'll kick off with the first race on today's card, which is a $75,000 maiden claiming event. It is a mile on the turf course, and my top selection, I went with number 8, and that's Susie's Pride of Paris. And last time she was 4th, she was only beaten a length and a half. I thought that was a pretty good effort. Excuse me, a pretty good effort for Mike Maker. She's now in the Jenna Antonucci barn, and it looks like you and I have landed on the same horse.
Yeah, this one, you know, as you mentioned, drop it to the $75,000 level. She took the overland route and circled 6 wide. She finished 4th, as you mentioned, beaten 1.5 lengths, going that mile in the 16th. Jenna Antonucci, Edgar Zayas riding in great form. He's got 7 or 8 victories already at the championship meet, and this is her newest acquisition. I think she's going to run very well in there. I'm looking at the board as we're talking,
too.
And we're looking at the number 9 horse, Mademoiselle Belle, currently up there 2-5. But let's preface this by saying it's very early in the wagering, and you know, it could be just one bet so far on the horse. So just wanted to point that out if you happen to be watching the board too. But I think Susie's Pride of Paris is going to be the favorite in that race.
I think so too, and she certainly is bred for the turf, and I like her numbers. You know, I look at the thoroughgraph sheets, I thought her numbers stacked up very well in that race. So, I mean, I'd love to get 99-1. I would go bet right now.
It's very early. I also use Gabby's kitten who finished in front of Susie's Pride of Paris back on November 3rd. Behind her, and behind her then, and in front of her, 2 races back. So this horse is going to be right there. And I also use Just Like Khaki.
On to the second race on today's card, which is a 6250 claiming event, a mile on the main track, and that kicks off the early pick 4. And my top selection was number 5, Oh the Gift, from the Marcus Vitale barn. And last time, it wasn't a horrible effort, I think, in his last start, but he's dropping back, I think, to a more reasonable level. He is 1 for 20. I don't like that, but I think he's in the right spot.
I put him on my ticket, but not on top. I went with the 7 Perfect Polar, gets the blinkers removed, tries a 1-turn mile after stalking the pace weakly late to finish 3rd. It was against similar. It was a 2-turn mile. It was across town at Gulfstream Park West. Howard Mills has Jonathan Gonzalez in the saddle. The 5 horse, for all the reasons you mentioned, but this horse is looking for his 2nd career victory in 19 starts. So, the previous start. So, a little bit of a shaky call there, and also used the 4, Divine Michael, returning to the main track. Had trouble at the top of the stretch in the turf last time out. The barn is really good with the turf to third angle. 23%. Miguel Vasquez, a rider we've been watching, is riding pretty good. So maybe Divine Michael is one of those horses you throw on the ticket, but would not be shocked at the 5, 1 or the 7, who you also have on your ticket.
I think you'd have to use a couple of horses for that race for the early pick 4. On to the third race on today's card. It is a 6-furlong event on the main track, a 50,000 maiden claiming test. And it seems like we went in exactly the same direction. That's number 4, Value Voucher, Larry Ravelli. And it looks like this 2-year-old colt by Super Saver is going to be showing speed in here. I'm a very big fan of the Super Savers. A lot of the horsemen have been big fans of Super Saver. It is his first crop of 2-year-olds, or this is his first crop. And he's done really well. I think the drop is going to help this colt. Joel Rosario gets aboard. Larry Ravelli. He's very good with his 2-year-olds.
Yeah, this one, as you mentioned, drop it to the $50,000 level, turn it back to 3/4 of a mile, which I think is key. Press the pace, weaken to finish 4th against maiden special weight competition. You mentioned trainer, that was at Keelan, by the way. Larry Ravelli, 8 for 17. 47% with similar class drops. Joel Rosario, as you mentioned, so a limited sampling, but he's very sharp with horses, placing him in the right spot to win. So Larry Ravelli's horse, we both have on top of our ticket. I used Awesome Union in 2nd, and Graham, who's the son of Maimonides, in there. And I like saying Maimonides, that's what I wanted to say.
Ralph Nix actually does a good job with his first-time starters. I threw in there a horse number 8, and that's Zippy Zape. And first-time start. Now, again, several things. The trainer, not particularly known for his first-time starters, although Stroll, the pedigree, really screams of turf. His first-time numbers, or first-time figures, are 17%. So I just thought I would throw that one on.
I would not be shocked if a first-time starter won that race.
Or at least hit the board at a price.
Right.
So we're always looking for those kind of...
You notice we haven't mentioned any scratches yet because there were none in the first 3 races.
Yeah, isn't that it? But now we come to race.
Well, I wanted to get them ready.
Exactly. Prepare them.
Not that there's a lot of scratches.
On to the 4th race, which is a 6250 claiming event. It is a mile on the main track. And as Ron said, we do have a few scratches in here. Number 2, 10, 16. Now, the 2 was significant for me because that was my top selection in here. So I ended up going, it changed the complexion a little bit for me in this particular race. I went number 6, and that's Bachata Dancer, going to be showing speed. And Ron, is she going to be alone in front? That's
the way it looks. I had the 2-horse, but I had it in 2nd. I had Bachata Dancer right at the top, dropping to the $6,250 level, returning to a 1-turn mile on the dirt, dueled early. Faded late, but that was against $8,000 non-winners of 3 lifetime claimers going a mile on the turf. Mike Petro, Paco Lopez, daughter Bernstein. You see Paco Lopez, turf to dirt, turn back, boink. Looks like speed to me. 12 Flash winner in 2nd. You also had the 12. And I threw in the 11. I see you have the 11 on your ticket exclusive stage. Been knocking on the door against similar across town at Gulfstream Park West. I don't know if this horse can win, but certainly can be on the board for the trifecta, whatever exotic wager. And don't forget, the early pick 4 it started in race 2. You might want to go deep in a couple of these races that we talked about early on before you get ready to go to the Rainbow 6 in the 5th.
Yeah, which the Rainbow 6 does start in the 5th. We'll take a short break, and we'll come back and have a look at that race.
Gulfstream Park is one of Florida's top entertainment destinations, mixing restaurants, clubs, a casino, and international boutique shops with world-class racing. In a lavish, sun-drenched setting with the feel of a Mediterranean village, Gulfstream is a leading year-round entertainment and tourist destination and the home of luxury residences in 2014. The Stronach family, owners of Gulfstream Park, is committed to the sport of thoroughbred racing and the grace, spirit, and generosity of the horse.
The Rainbow Six is back and it's better than ever. Now with a 20-cent base wager, it will expand the market for the popular bet. And in addition to doubling the base wager, the percentage return for the winners on the day the jackpot isn't hit increases to 70%, with 30% going to the carryover pool for the next program. Gulfstream Park, first post, 12:35 p.m. each and every day.
Welcome back to Gulfstream, and we're going to have a look at the 5th race on today's card, which kicks off the 20-cent Rainbow Six. We got to get involved because we have a competitive race, and the Rainbow Six always a race you want to get involved with.
Yesterday, I wanted to mention that there were 871 tickets alive going into the last race. It was a very formful day. So a 20-cent wager still managed to pay $200, and some people hit it with a $14, $16 ticket because Todd Pletcher was heavily in that mix, and it turned out, and you would say, well, with all these tickets left, it's got to pay nothing. At $200, and depending how much you put into the race, if you bet $20, $30, you get a nice return of $200. That was not a single ticket. That was numerous tickets, as I mentioned, over 800 tickets alive in the final leg.
And we do have a scratch in that 5th race. Number 9, Enthroned, has been scratched. My top selection, I went with number 4, Ricochet, for Jason Service. Comes off of a win, and that was back on November 6th at Gulfstream Park West. And very impressive, a jockey that's been doing really well here, or I should say in Southern Florida, Ron, climbs aboard. So this is one that I really like in this spot.
Yeah, that is Tyler Gaffalione, an apprentice, and if you grew up in Florida. I didn't grow up here, but been here many, many years. You know about his father. Steve Gaffalione was one of the perennial leading jockeys over at Calder Racecourse. So this kid is riding in great form. I did not use that horse, and I like that in the Rainbow Six, because now, you see, you got to use more horses. I did use the 8 Charlie's Picnic, stretching out around 2 turns after rallying from off the pace to finish 3rd and 1st, respectively, in a pair of turf sprints at Belmont. Mark Hennig is the trainer. Jockey Joella Lozario returning on the son of Indian Charlie. And I know you have this one on your ticket.
I did have this one on my ticket. You mentioned Mark Hennig. A big day for Mark yesterday. He had a couple of his horses, his stakes mares, come back, and he won the Sugar Swirl. And really impressive. Baffle Me, she ran really well also in the South Beach. She ran 2nd. So big day for Mark Hennig, and hopefully he could keep up the momentum going into today.
You know, you mentioned that scratch in it. Before we go to the next race, you mentioned the scratch of number 9, Enthroned. But trainer Alan Jerkins had 2 horses in that race. And I just want to point this out because he left the other one in, and that is the 7 Niche. And, maybe the scratch of Enthroned, they wanted to do it to see how Niche could run. He's coming off a maiden win. It was a pretty impressive victory at 7.5 furlongs. It was against $35,000 maidens. So if you're watching what trainers, or you perceiving what trainers might be doing, you might want to throw the number 7 Niche on your ticket. And that's because of the Rainbow Six, you might have to go deep because you don't want to get knocked out in the first leg.
You do not want to get knocked out. On to the 6th race. Now the 6th race kicks off the Pick 5, and this is a race that I'm pretty excited about today. It's a maiden special weight for 2-year-old fillies. It is 6 furlongs on the main track. We do have a couple scratches. The 5, the 9 scratched out, and I went with number 10, Celestine. And this is a 2-year-old daughter of Scat Daddy from the Bill Kaplan barn. Bill Kaplan does a pretty good job with his first-time starter, Scat Daddy. They're pretty precocious, his offspring. And I think the works, several elements that I like, Ron, and I'm hoping I get somewhere close to 8-1 on the morning line.
Well, we'll see what happens with that. I went with the 8, Destina, stretching out an additional half furlong today after I thought a promising 5.5 furlong career debut in which she dueled for the lead. She finished 2nd. The trainer is Gustavo Delgado. He's pretty sharp with maidens making their 2nd start, about 30%. Javier Castellano in the saddle. I'm curious to see if you used the 13. You did not, and I'll tell you why I used it. It's a half-sister to Ohio Derby, Indiana Indiana Derby, a Sunshine Millions Classic preview winner, East Hall, who was trained by Bill Kaplan.
You see how it all works together. And you know, the with distinctions are very precocious. Now, and she did show some form in her debut, so that's a pretty. I think you're going in the right direction. I know there's another horse that we both used, and that's number 3, Perfect Flute. Talk about pedigree. She is by Pleasantly Perfect. We know he won the Breeders' Cup Classic, but the dam is Flute. Flute, who won the Alabama. She won the Kentucky Oaks. Just a beautiful mare herself. This filly is actually a half to a graded stakes winner named Filimbi.
Is that how you say that?
Filimbi, yes.
Yeah, I looked it up and I didn't know how to say it. I'm glad
so you did.
Yeah, Golden Clover Stakes winner.
So now Filimbi is a nice turf mare, and she needed a start to get going. However, I think this filly, she might be one that can hit the board.
I like your 10 horse. I like that in there with the price.
Yeah, I'm thinking that I'm playing on pedigree there.
And this kicks off the pick 5, so you got to go deep here too.
Yeah, I think there are several horses that you can use in your wagers here. On to the 7th race on today's card, which kicks off the late pick
100,000.
It's like my voice, my inner voice. And we do have a scratch of the main track only, number 13.
And we also got the 5. We got that just before we came out. Number 5 is scratched out of there, Thinking of Mom.
Keeping me honest. And I went with number 6, and that's a Mumtaza from the Kieran McLaughlin barn. This is a daughter of Tappet. She cost $525,000 at the Keeneland September sale. Now, she's trying turf for the first time. I really like the Tappets on turf. He hits at a very good percentage. But the mare, Coral Necklace, has already produced 2 graded stakes winners on the turf. One of them is Bourbon Bay, also Ginger Brew. She's a multiple stakes winner. Bred for the turf, I think, top to bottom.
Well, she knows her breeding, so I would be listening to that because I did not use that horse. Now I'm going to use it. I did use the 12 Forensic. This one was game and defeat. When she recovered from a troubled start, she was pinched back at the beginning, and she made up 14 lengths off the pace to finish second, beaten only 1.5 lengths, going a mile into 16th. It was at Laurel Shug McGee and Johnny V in the saddle. So this horse had a legitimate excuse last time out and came flying late. So I went with the horse that I've already seen run, not in person. I watched it on the replays, and I used Lady Anita and Colorful. But I like what you were saying about the Kieran's horse there. That sounds pretty good.
That's the horse I'm going to have on top. But you mentioned Colorful, and she's a daughter of Smart Strike, such a top class stallion, and in fact is the sire of that mare that won yesterday, the Marlborough Rose. But this one cost $1 million as a weanling.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
And she is out of Raging Fever. Raging Fever, she was a multiple Grade 1 stakes winner, albeit on the dirt, but she has a beautiful pedigree. And as I said, I think the Smart Strikes, they certainly can run on the turf. We move on to the 8th race on today's card, and we do have a couple of scratches. Number 4, Stall Walkin' Dude. Number 12 from the also eligibles, scratched, and that changed my picks just a little bit. I did have Stall Walkin' Dude on there, but it didn't change my top selection. I went with number 7, and that's King of the Bay for Mike Trombetta, and hasn't raced since October 11th, but that was a victory at Gulfstream Park West, going a mile, and I'm hoping that this gelding will make it two straight.
Well, I used the number 6 Moon Jazz. I want to ask you about this. So it's making its North American debut for trainer Kieran McLaughlin. Lasix ad. It hit the board in 3 or 4 turf races in Great Britain. Those weren't I don't know if those were the top level tracks there, but I like the way this colt has been working. A couple of strong workouts at Palm Meadows on the Palm Meadows turf course.
When these horses ship over, especially those Shadwell horses, and they're placed very well placed. See the Stars, the stallion. He's a relatively young stallion, a top caliber racehorse himself, but they've been very, very popular. They've been very successful. His offspring have been doing very well. We're getting first-time Lasix, and with Kieran first-time Lasix, his numbers are unbelievable. And also, Kieran feels that this colt is going to be able to adjust to the conditions over here. He's been doing well, training well, and I think this is one you have to include.
Yeah, and you got to have Blarp on your ticket. Just number 9 Blarp. Just saying it is fun. Stretching out to a mile and a 16th. Returned from a layoff to run a stamina tweaking 5th, going a mile. That was on the Churchill Downs turf. Trainer Billy Mott, John Velasquez atop the sun. And I know you like this sire, Warfront.
Warfront, top international stallion, and very versatile as well. onto the 9th race on today's card. It is a 6250 claiming event. It is a mile on the main track. We do have a couple of scratches, number 5, Arion Silver, and number 15 and 16. And as always, Larry Colmus will be on in just a few moments to give the updated changes and scratches. And my top selection, Ron, finally, we're in agreement. It looks like we're back in agreement. Number 1, and that's Whiskey Tap, and Javier Castellano getting aboard, and coming off of a recent victory.
Yeah, and this horse, if you look at its record on this track, 6 previous races with 2 wins in 2 seconds. We both use the 11 Becky's Kitten in second, dropping a notch on the claiming scale, returning to the main track after setting a really pressured pace throughout and getting beat a length against $8,000 2 lifetime types. Marcus Vitale, we mentioned this over the last couple of days. He's about over 25% with horses going from the turf to the dirt. Orlando Boca Chica, and this one also has run well on the main track. 8 races here, 2 wins, 3 seconds, and a third.
Yeah, it seems like we're in total agreement on that race. And heading into the final race on today's card, which is a 20,000 claiming event. It is a mile and a 16th on the turf course. The scratches, the also eligibles, 15 and 16. As always, super high 5 wagering in the final race on the card. And my top selection, and it looks again, we're in agreement here. Number 5 is Margin from the Mike Pino barn. A victory back in September, and that was at Monmouth Park. So I saw this gelding that day, and this time 9 furlongs, or I should say last time 9 furlongs, ran a pretty good race at Laurel.
Yeah, I mean, it's illogical, as you mentioned, turning back in distance after returning from that fresh inning. Finished third, again, similar, as you mentioned, go 9 furlongs, and this horse had the lead at the mile and the 16th marker, so the turn back is definitely good for it. I use number 4, Fifth Avenue Fancy in second, and number 3, Rontos New York, who's going to run in Florida now, even though he's Rontos New York for Manny Espora, threatened to notch this 2 lifetime condition in 4 starts on the New York turf circuit. Luis Contreras was named to ride.
And it looks like this is where that's where our agreement ends, is with that top horse. And I did use I used a horse from the John Kimmel barn, and that's Coexist. And this is a horse that I've gotten to see not only here last winter, but also at Belmont Park. And I think that this one's going to figure in there as well. So that's it for today's card. Competitive in terms of the way the races have been playing, Ron, have you seen any patterns in terms of the main track and the turf?
Not really. I keep looking. I mean, it looks like the speed might be a little bit better now that the temperatures have warmed up a little bit in the afternoon. They start out beautiful. They warm up in the afternoon. Speed has always been a factor here.
And if you're on the inside.
Yeah. Sort of, there's no pronounced bias or anything like that. In the turf course, I'm still looking for a bias, and I can't find one.
Yeah, me too. Sometimes I'm hoping for them. I think I'm so smart, and then you realize that the gods are not, the racing gods are not in accordance with us. But we will be back for the rest of this afternoon. And before we head out, we'll just give you a look back at yesterday's Grade 3 Sugar Swirl, and it was won by Merry Meadow. Stick around, folks.
After a half in 45 and 3, and they're into the stretch. Our free roll on the inside, Wildcat Lily and Merry Meadow coming up to them in the center of the track. Merry Meadow makes a run for the lead coming down to the 16th pole. Our free roll is there. Then Wildcat Lily, followed by Old Doño, but it's Merry Meadow and Javier Castellano to win. And then a photo between